Now let's see what's happening when we're calling a function and we're giving it some variables as input. So what I want us to do is to look at this code together and see what it's doing, and then we're going to write similar code. So here we have a function called give full grade. It's taking a variable as input called grade. So it's expecting an argument, and we're referring to that argument with the word grade, variable name grade. And then it says print I got this grade. So it's going to print whatever they got. And then it's changing this grade to 100. And then it says, but I don't like it, so I'm changing it to whatever, 100, right? So here, if you pass in a 50, this function is going to print, I got this grade 50. It's going to make this variable be 100, and then it's going to say, but I don't like it, so I'm changing it to 100. Now let's see in main what's happening. Main here has a variable called student A. That's 87. It's printing student A has 87. Okay, so here the value of student A is 87, so it's going to print 87. Then it's going to call get full grade with this 87. So here, the student A, whatever is stored in it, which is the 87, comes here. So we're going to see the 87 printed. And so that's why you see I got this grade 87. And then grade is 100. So now it says, but I don't like it. I'm changing it to 100. So here I see this line. And then it finishes. It comes back. And here, when it's printing student A now has, it's still printing the 87. Why didn't this value that got passed here change to 100? Okay, so this is happening because of something called pass by value. So in main, initially, we had student A had the value of 87. Okay, and then we called give full grade on the student A. What happened was give full grade went to RAM and got space to store a variable called grade. So this is now a different RAM space. So this is the RAM space that's used by main. And now give full grade created a new RAM space and labeled it grade. And what happens is the 87 that was in student A got copied into grade. So whatever was in 87 what was in student A got copied into grade, the variable grade. And now when I set grade equal to 100, what I'm changing is the value of the variable grade. I am modifying grade. Am I touching student A? No, this is a totally different RAM space. And so here what we say happened was that the value of student A, the value of the variable, got copied into grade. This is called pass by value. And this is going to be true for a while. We're not going to touch upon anything besides pass by value in this course in Python. But if you move on and learn about objects and writing your own classes in Python, like the object-oriented part of Python, you will learn about something else, a different concept called pass by reference, where you're actually giving a reference to your RAM space. Here, give full grade doesn't see the RAM space student A is living in. All it got was the 87. Okay, now here, let's just do this practice really quickly. I have some functions to find, and what I want to do is I want to see what's going to happen when I call A on 6. So A on 6, you can pause the video and kind of calculate them, and then unpause and see the output with me. So here when I call A with 6, 6 is going to get copied into X. X now here is 6. So it's going to say 6 plus 1 is 7. If I was to pass negative 5.3, negative 5.3 is going to get copied over into a RAM space called X, and then it's going to give me negative 4.3. If I call A of 6 several times, A of 6 we said gives me 7. A of 7 is going to give me 8. A of 8 is going to give me 9, so this gives me 9. Now if I try to call function C with A of 1, well, what's A of 1? A of 1 is going to give me 1 plus 1, which is 2. What's B of 1? B of 1 is going to give me 1 plus 1.0, so it's going to give me 2.0. Remember, we always move to the higher level of precision. So here I have a float. So now I have C of 2, 2.0. And when I call 2 plus 2.0, I'm going to get a 4.0. And then on this one, I'll let you do on your own. Okay, so we talked about pass by value. The next thing I want to talk about is that when you call some methods, you can actually give them, give your arguments names. And then if you don't remember the order the arguments are, you can actually pass them by names. This is called keyword arguments. What does that all mean? Here, what I'm doing is I'm defining a function called display name, and I'm saying I expect that you give me the first name first, and then the last name, and then here, this is a flag, a Boolean flag, that tells me whether you want me to reverse them or not. So if you want me to reverse them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print the last name, comma, and then the first name. But if you don't want me to reverse them, if reverse is false, I'm just going to print first space last. So this is what the display name does. You give it the first and last name and a Boolean reverse, and it determines how to print them, either the last name first or the first name first. Okay, so how do I call this method? Well, what I can do is I can call this function, function, not method. And I just want to tell you why I'm confusing. I keep switching between function and method. In Python, what we're writing are functions. In Java, what we write are methods, but they are basically kind of the same thing. So that's why you'll find me a lot of times mixing up function and method. Now, Python does have methods, but those we'll talk about later. But what we're doing right now are functions. Now, here I want to call the display name function. So I'm going to give it my first name, my last name, and I don't want it to be reversed, so I'm going to say false. And so this is going to print my first name and then the last name. Now, if I say I want you to print me my first name, last name with true, it's going to print my last name, comma, first name. This is how we learned how to do it. This is kind of the easiest way. But what you can also do is give them, like, if I don't remember if it takes the first and last first, or what, I don't remember the order. What I can do is I can say, well, I want to call display name with the last name being that, the first name being that, and the reverse is true. So this line of code is going to be exactly like this line of code where I say display name first, last, and true. I could also just say I want first, this is my first name, this is my last name, or I want the reverse flag to be false. So those are just different ways you can call the method, the function, sorry. So this is nice when you don't remember the order. You can just, say this is I know you take a last name as an argument, you take a first name as an argument, you take a reverse as an argument. So this is how I'm going to be doing it. If we don't give it like a keyword, if I just put the name of my the variable value that I'm passing, we call that positional argument. So when they ask you to do positional arguments, you're just putting the values like 3, 5 or whatever you're passing variables in. But if they say use keyword arguments, what you do is you say the name of the variable, the name of the argument that your function takes as input. Okay. Before we talk about the classwork, I want to show you also another example of where we do positional arguments. So we've talked about printing before. So remember we talked about when I print something, let's go to main here. When I print something, we could print, so I can say like hi, and then there, and I can say I want the separator to be like a dash, for example. And I want the end, when you're done, I want you to put an exclamation mark and then go to the next line, for example. Here, what we are actually doing, these are called positional arguments. I'm saying hi is in the first position, there is in the second position, but these are keyword arguments. This line is going to be exactly the same as if I put the end first. So if I put end here first, it's going to give me the same output as if I didn't. If I put sep and then end, it's going to be the same output as giving end, comma, sep. And so here, those two lines printed the same thing. Hi there with a dash for the separator and exclamation mark end line for the end. So these are examples of keyword arguments. Why are they nice? Now, when I'm calling print, I know that it takes a separator and it takes an end. I don't have to remember, does it take the separator first or the end first? It doesn't matter. As long as I'm calling them with the end, with the keyword name, I'm telling it this is the keyword that I want you to use for the argument name, it's going to work. Now, will it work if I move, like, let's copy this again. And let's say I try putting the word end at the beginning. So, or just here, even in the middle. Okay, let's try that. You'll find that that doesn't work. Why? And here it tells you why. It says positional argument follows keyword argument. And it doesn't like you mixing them. So if you want to use positional arguments and keyword arguments at the same time, what you do is you put all your positional arguments first. So the first you put all positional arguments, and then you put all keyword arguments. You can't mix and match. You can't like just change the order. So this is invalid. So this is invalid. Why? Because I'm mixing. I have positional, then keyword, then positional. Doesn't work. You have to put all your positional arguments first. Okay. So this was an example of how we actually have been using keyword arguments, but we didn't really define it until now. So for today's classwork, what you're going to do, and this one contains a lot of information. So what I want you to do is not read it all and then, just start implementing the way you wanted. I want you to implement it the way I've asked. So the first thing is you're going to write a function called convert. So that means you're going to start by saying def convert, and it takes 2 arguments. So in parentheses, I'm going to put 2 arguments. I asked you to name your arguments distance and distance type. And I'm telling you that this is going to be representing a float and this is going to be representing a string. So that's what your convert is going to look like at the beginning. It's going to be def convert, and it's going to take a distance and a distance type. Okay, so this is the first line that you're going to basically be writing when you're doing your convert. Now, what is it that I want you to do in this function? Here I'm telling you, if the distance type, that string, is a K, you can assume that the distance they gave you is kilometers. If they give you an M, you can assume that the distance is miles. So basically, this string, the distance type, is an indication what distance they gave you. Did they give you the distance in kilometers or miles? And the purpose of this function is to convert it to the other. So if they give you the distance, this number, and they give you a K, that means this number is kilometers, and you're going to convert it to miles. So you're going to use the formula where you take the kilometers, that distance in kilometers, multiply it by 0.6214, and return that number in miles. Now, if they gave it to you in miles, you're going to convert it to kilometers by multiplying 1.609. So the purpose of this function is basically to convert between kilometers and miles. If they give you kilometers, you give them back miles. If they give you miles, you give them back kilometers. Whatever they gave you, you give them the opposite. So this is the function. Now main is going to be asking the user. Here, convert is not interacting with the user at all. Who is interacting with the user? Main. Main is going to interact with the user. It's going to ask them for the distance and distance type. Here, use different variable names. Don't use distance and distance type. Use different variable names. If the user enters a negative distance or a distance type that's not K or M, you should terminate your program. And we learned that the keyword return just ends the program. So you're going to have these 2 checks. And if either the distance is negative or the distance type is not K or M, you're going to just say return, end the program. And then if they're both good values, you're going to call the convert function, and you're going to call it twice. One time you're going to just use positional arguments, and the other time is using keyword arguments. Remember, keyword arguments is when you say distance equal, distance type equal. And both of them, you're going to get the results of both of them and print the converted distance, and make sure to print it with only 2 digits after the decimal. And on the next slide, it shows you a sample run. So here, for example, when the user entered the distance as 100 and they entered for the type, they entered M, what the program did was it converted 100 miles to kilometers, and it told it that it was 160.90. Now, why is it printing it twice? It's printing it twice because it's going to call the convert function twice, once with positional arguments and once with the keyword arguments. Test your code on HackerRank and in Mu, and if you have any questions, let me know.